Now back to Just Energy Radio with Dr. Rita Louise.
Hello and welcome back to Just Energy Radio. I'm your host, Dr. Rita Louise, and thank you all for staying tuned to the second hour of the show. Just Energy Radio is brought to you by the Institute of Applied Energetics. That's www.appliedenergeticsinstitute.com, where you can jumpstart your intuition today by downloading our free 50-page Jumpstart Your Intuition Guide. Do that by going to justenergyradio.com. AppliedEnergeticsInstitute.com. It's also brought to you by SoulHealer.com, where you can find out about all the products and services I offer. Again, a couple of quick announcements. May 17th is the Granbury Paranormal Expo. I'll be there. And our next guest is the person that is organizing the event. And so we'll have a little chat about that. Also, August 16th, Colleyville, Illinois, Ancient Mysteries International, and September 6th, Dash Beardsley Wake the Dead show. Anyway, let me tell you a little about Brandy, and we will get her on the air. Brandy Herr is the co-founder of the Granbury Ghosts and Legends Tour and the annual Granbury Paranormal Expo. She is a member of research and investigation of paranormal and has participated in several ghost hunt investigations in the Granbury area. Born in the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area, Brandy attended the Pennsylvania State University, where she received her bachelor's degree in public relations. So the author of the new book, Haunted Granbury, Brandy Herr. Hey, Brandy, how are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm great. I am just so excited to have you on. So I was just mentioning your event. So let's talk a little bit about that first, and then we'll kind of touch on it again at the end of the show, just to remind everybody. So, okay. So you're hosting the Granbury Paranormal Expo. So what's that all going to be about? I mean, other than I'll be there, so it'll be a lot of fun.
Right, of course. Well, it's our third annual event, and it's just a lot of vendors. We've got some speakers, lots of like ghost hunting groups and psychics and mediums and UFO experts and all just kind of anything weird and unexplained. We're very vendor-oriented, so people can come in and just mix and mingle with anyone. And then we have 3 speakers lined up at 11 o'clock. We have Selena Rohn, who is the founder of Fear Paranormal Society. She'll be talking about being an empath in the ghost hunting field. At 1 o'clock, we have Janice Oberding, who is the founder of Haunted Nevada, and she'll be speaking about the Ouija board. And then at 3 o'clock, we have Dean Hagland, who is known as Langley in the X-Files and the Lone Gunman. So it's going to be a lot of fun. Just anyone that wants to come and kind of get some answers, get some questions answered, about just hopefully something there for everyone.
Yeah, and I just want to let people know, that it's not like a ghost show. It is just really kind of an open-ended, has a little bit of something for everybody there. Right. And it's just a really fun event. And it's going to be in that building by the water, I'm assuming?
Yes, the Granbury Resort Conference Center, 621 East Pearl Street, and it's just $5 at the door, so it's easily accessible to anyone, and it's from 10 to 5 p.m. on May 17th.
Cool. So it's really in a cool location. One of the things that I like to do when I'm supposed to be working, but not, is I'll go outside and look at the water and look at the little mountain in the background. It's really cool. Granbury is just a neat place. So let's kind of change our attention and talk about Granbury in the general sense. Well, actually, let's talk about you first, Brandy. That's probably more fun. So how did maybe a little embarrassing, but more fun. But how did you get into the whole concept of ghost hunting and the paranormal in the first place?
Well, we've always been interested in it. My mother, I grew up with my mother reading Stephen King novels, and we've always had weird experiences with the family, past family members coming to visit present family members, that sort of thing. And my mother and I were living in Granbury. We just moved here recently in August of 2009, and we'd started working at a restaurant that's located inside the Nut House Hotel. The restaurant's not there anymore, but the hotel still is, and the hotel is haunted. And we would experience, the ghost there quite a bit. And people would always come in and ask for our stories, and so we'd tell them. And one time we're chatting with a couple ladies and telling them the stories. and one of the ladies says, "Well, does Granbury have a ghost tour?" And we both thought, maybe they should. So we just started doing some research, because we knew a couple of the basic stories that we'd heard of before. So we thought, okay, well, let's see what else we can kind of uncover. And from all the research we did, we were just amazed at how much history and how much ghostly activity is going on. So we started the ghost tours, and our first tour was April of 2010. And so we've been going for a little over 4 years now. So we that got us started, and then from there we got kind of adopted into the group Research and Investigation of the Paranormal. They came out to do an investigation at the city cemetery, saw us sitting there waiting to do a tour, so they came on the tour and said, "Well, hey, come out tomorrow and do the investigation." And so we became a part of them that way. And and then from there, sorry, my dog is apparently seeing a cat out the window or something. And then from there, we thought, well, wouldn't that be really fun to put on a whole expo, bring in a bunch of ghost hunting groups and other, groups that has to do with the unexplained, and just have a whole event around it. So it's been kind of snowballing from there. So,
what I find very interesting, and I don't know if this is across the country or if this is just like a Texas thing, but it seems like you go into these little, podunk towns.
Right.
Excuse my French about that, but they all seem to have like these very rich histories, and they all seem to be haunted. I mean, like big time haunted.
That's what I love about Granbury is like that. I mean, so many people don't even know Granbury exists. It's this little town just southwest of Fort Worth, and that not only is it haunted, but it's just so rich in just random connections that we have here. Supposedly the legend is that John Wilkes Booth haunts the Opera House, that he escaped here after he was supposedly killed in the barn. Also, it's believed that Jesse James, escaped here after he was assassinated too. It seems like we're a great town for you to wind up after you're killed, but and then we've got connection our clock tower. The only other same clock tower of the same type is Big Ben. So we've got a connection to Big Ben. The man that plays Chewbacca, Peter Mayhew, used to live here. So it's like we've got such random connections all here leading to Granbury. So.
Well, and you're not far from Edelweiss, which I call Oompa Loompas, which has great German food. So.
Right. Hey, we got a German restaurant in Granbury now too. You'll have to check it out while you're here. It's down on the square.
Well, cool. No, I mean, because, Granbury's got its stuff going on. Then, of course, there's Jefferson, one of my favorite little spooky haunted towns. I'm going to be moving to Marshall here pretty soon, and I have a feeling that has a pretty haunted history associated with that town. It's just, I just find it very interesting. But, since we're kind of talking a little bit about the history, you kind of gave just kind of a little overview. But, do you know the history, like the origin of Granbury in the first place, how it ended up on the map?
Well, people started coming here, migrating here, mainly because of the Brazos River. That's where they were settling. They wanted to be close to the river. And then, so Hood County was formed. And Granbury is the county seat of Hood County. And then the town site of Granbury proper was incorporated in 1871. But we're very much, it's the Wild West kind of outlaw town. It's still Hood County and the area of Granbury was forming before and during the Civil War. But so mostly though is the Brazos River that drew people.
So what was other than it was water. Right. What was the big draw?
I guess it's just this is a good location, to settle, to be near the river. And then I know there's Comanche Peak nearby, and I don't know what was the draw with Comanche Peak of why they wanted to be near here. I do know Hood County used to be larger. You actually used to encompass Somervell County, which is where Glenrose is, and had Comanche Peak. So it did used to be bigger, and they wanted the town site to be closer to Comanche Peak. So I'm assuming there's something there that was drawing them, about maybe some sort of a strategic location with Comanche Peak, but now that's part of Somervell County, so it's kind of a moot point, I guess. But the main thing was, I guess, this is just kind of the location that they felt would be the best to be near the Brazos River, and since water is always the big draw, if you want to settle where there's a readily available source of water. So,
well, that's pretty cool. So I have to tell you, obviously I've been to Granbury a couple times. And I've been to the jail, because, you could go in it. So that was pretty cool in the downtown area. And when I went in there, it just seemed like it had to be haunted. So have you uncovered any like ghosty stories about the jail?
Oh, there's lots of stuff about the jail. The jail is actually one whole chapter in my book. There's lots of stuff going on there. One of the common one is they believe it's an Indian named Joe, and I always kind of say, what Indian is not named Joe? But it's supposedly that this Indian named Joe contacted an automatic rider who came in, wanted to speak with him, and that he was separated from his tribe as they were wandering this area of Texas, and so now he's just kind of lonely and misses his tribe and likes company. But I know there's been others, past inmates that have been uncovered there. Some ghost hunting groups have gone in there, and that they were getting names coming through on the EVPs, and they would check the names based on the jail registers of the past inmates, and they were able to actually match some of them up. One of them was actually a person that was incarcerated there for only 4 days. So it's kind of a mystery as to why you would want to spend eternity haunting the jail that you only spent 4 days in. But there's a lot of stuff coming in and out of there, though. It's a very haunted location. We have several groups that come. I know one of them in particular that they said that they go there so much that they know that there's something there. They don't actually go there trying to find evidence. They actually use it more as an experimental location because they know they're going to find evidence. So they go there to try out their new techniques and see what works and what doesn't.
Well, that's kind of interesting. Yeah, I don't know why you would want to go back to a location like a jail. I mean, I could see if you died there, maybe.
Right.
But, yeah. Yeah, I mean, the whole place was just kind of creepy. And then there's that room with all the writing on all the walls.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know anything about that? I mean, I'll just give that to you. Do you know anything about that? Because I think that was probably the creepiest part there.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the main cell, of course, and of course it's all the inmates that would write the graffiti. I know it's also that there's a large poem written on one of the walls, and so they believe that one of the ghosts is the man that wrote the poem, because one of the ghost hunting groups that she was reading the poem out loud, and whenever that happened, that's whenever they started getting a lot more activity, and then because it's signed Stephen the Poet, and that they got names coming through saying that he was Stephen, and I've had other people say that they got recordings of someone saying that they were Stephen the Poet. So mainly, though, it's just it was basically, I guess, just a way to make your mark that Bob was here, that sort of thing. But it's really interesting to read some of them because some of them are really very poignant, versus just I hate this place or something. So.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, but I guess when I was in there, I didn't realize that it was multiple people. I mean, in a couple of spots, you could tell it was different people. But I was thinking maybe it was just one person that was in there for a really long time that was writing all over the walls.
No, they've got names and dates and everything all over the walls. Of just tons of, I guess that's kind of the thing is, leave your mark. So.
Cool. So I've heard a story that Granbury was actually founded by a couple of nuts. Is that true?
It's pretty fitting, yeah. And I always say, because we start our tour next to the Nut House Hotel, and it makes sense for us to start with the Nut House. But yes, it was founded by Jesse and Jacob Nutt, N-U-T-T, two T's. They were two blind brothers. That it was actually their land donation, along with Thomas Lambert, that made the town possible. That the town of Granbury was a 40-acre land donation made by these three men. So where the Nutt Hotel currently stands, that is where the Nutt brothers had their mercantile business that was built in 1866 in a log cabin building. And then the building of the Nutt House Hotel building was built in 1893. So they were established there, from the very beginning, and just kind of kept building from there. Then the one that haunts the Nutt Hotel is Mary Lou Watkins. She is the granddaughter of the younger brother of Jesse and Jacob Nutt. Her grandfather was David Lee Nutt. And in the 1960s, she basically single-handedly refurbished the town square. She's the reason why we're such a tourist attraction today, why we have so many historical markers and just a huge significance, and why it's such a great square. So from the 1860s to the 1960s, an entire century went by with the Nutt family, still helping Granbury business prosper.
A whole century?
Yep, an entire
So,
century.
so are there still nuts in Granbury today?
Oh, there's a few now. I think there are still some descendants around. I have not had the pleasure of meeting any of them yet, but I think they've kind of scattered, but there might still be some lingering around.
So as you go and investigate these different locations, try to get the history of the buildings and whatever, um, how do people feel? I mean, we are talking Texas. Are they kind of open to giving you the information? Do you have to kind of pull teeth? How's that whole process work out?
Surprisingly enough, we've actually been very well received. There's been one main one that says that we're evil and all, but he's not there on the square anymore, so he's no longer a problem anyway. But otherwise, that most people think that I mean, they actually think that it's really cool. I mean, there's some that that we've asked that if we can come in and investigate, and they're a little more hesitant. I don't really want you drumming anything up, so that's not a big deal. But otherwise, most people just love it that they want us to come in and find out what's there. Or it'll be where they're thinking, oh, I haven't really experienced anything. You're probably not going to find anything. We go in and investigate, and they go, wow, there really is something here. So for the most part, though, I mean, people have been very, very receptive, very welcoming to the ghost tours and the ghost hunting group and the Paranormal Expo. Like I said, it's been growing, and the town is really on board with helping out and promoting it and really welcoming our guests.
But see, that's really cool because, I just keep hearing these horror stories about, that this type of information and this type of stuff is just not very well received. And so I'm just really happy to hear that Granbury is pretty open-minded.
Yeah, we had no idea how it was going to be, thinking, let's just try it out and see, how many people are going to protest us. But they've basically, so far, knock on wood, we've been here for over 4 years now that, they've kind of embraced us with open arms. The tour's still growing. And it's funny, people are still amazed that we were talking to people, some of the psychics that have been to the expo in the past, and they were telling other people, because we went to a psychic fair to, mingle with people. And so some of them were describing it to the psychics that were there, and they're going, in Granbury? There's a Paranormal Expo in Granbury? So it's all just been, it's really neat because it's a way to kind of show that there is a market out there. There are people out there that are interested in it and, kind of trying to break the stereotype a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think, or at least I try to attribute, shows like, Ghost Hunter and, all of the other paranormal type shows that are on TV of lessening people's fears to
Right.
the whole concept. It's not necessarily like an evil thing.
Right.
So, at least that's my hope.
Right. I think those have been really popular. People, people love coming on the tour and they'll be talking about, oh, Zach Bagans and on Ghost Hunters and all that. So it is a very popular thing, and it really draws people to the tours and to the expo, and because and everyone wants to be the next big ghost hunter. So.
Yeah, not me. Because then
Right.
they want you to like go into those rooms in the dark and
Right.
that's okay. That's okay. Turn the lights on. Okay. So, in my experience, many old hotels were former houses of ill repute. Is it the same for Granbury? Can you still detect its seedy underpinnings?
We had a few of those. I know there were at least 7 saloons on the square at one time. So much so that Carrie Nation actually came to town to try to get everything shut down. And she got the women together to form the Christian Women's Temperance League, and eventually they did actually enact prohibition and shut down the saloons. And of course, several of the saloons had what I like to say gentlemen's area where men can find company for the evening. I like to say that a lot of them were upstairs. It's rumored that one of the places, it's now a restaurant on the square, and it's actually where John Wilkes Booth supposedly tended bar, that it was a saloon and mercantile store below, and then it was one of those areas upstairs, and that it's believed that the ghost that haunts there is a lady in a long red dress, that she was the madam there. Upstairs, and then there's other, like I think the German restaurant. It's believed that was also another one, and then the 1890s Grill was another one too upstairs for the Cowboys. So yeah, we had kind of a party town for a while.
Why are they always in a red dress? What's with
I know,
that?
right? then it goes with the red light. It's just the, I guess, universal color for evil or something. But
Yeah, I guess. But I'll share this story with you. So the first time that I went to Jefferson to do an investigation, we were in the Jefferson Hotel, and I'm going around the downstairs. I mean, because I do the psychic stuff, so I'm going around the downstairs and checking everything out. And so then I finally make it upstairs. And once I got past Bruno, this guy that stands on the stairs and kind of guards entrance up there, I walk up there and I'm kind of feeling into the energy, and I'm like, this has got like sex energy everywhere, and then it dawns on me what's actually going on. I was like, holy crap.
I'm kind of glad I'm not psychic, because I'm not sure I want to know what sex energy would feel like.
It's actually, I'd rather feel sex energy and then have my face blush and then laugh at the people and go, it's got sex energy here, as opposed to like there's some evil, nasty demon who wants to like scratch your eyeballs out. I mean, it feels a lot better.
Of course, if you put those two together, that would be really bad. But
but you go into these locations, and that's what you're kind of expecting is, the evil, nasty demon that's going to scratch your eyes out. And when you hit sex energy, it's like, it's pretty fun.
Right.
Funner.
Right.
Makes me laugh and blush and get a little giddy. Not that I would ever do that on air or anything, but anyway. So when talking about Granbury, and I'm going to ask this in two different ways, because there's Granbury and then there's your absolute favorite. But when talking about Granbury, what is your favorite haunted location?
Well, actually, those two are the same, because most of my investigations have been in Granbury. Since most of the investigations they do are on weekends, and usually I'm probably doing the tours if it's not the other tour guide. But my favorite haunted location is definitely, it's called the Langdon Center. It's an old white house on Pearl Street, about a block and a half-ish down from the square, and it's known as the A.P. Gordon House. That it's the original house of A.P. Gordon, who actually owned the saloon that John Wilkes Booth supposedly tended bar at. But now it's used as like an art museum and has cultural events and that sort of thing. And it's believed that not only does A.P. Gordon haunt the building, but his 5-year-old granddaughter Audrey haunts the building. And Audrey is very active. We've been in there 3 times to do an investigation, and she's been active every single time. She loves people, loves attention. We've gotten some really great EVPs from her. And even on the tour, we had, if you go to our website, granburytours.com, and click on Ghostly Tour Photos, the very first photo you'll see is a picture taken on a tour. A lady calls back after the tour the next day, all excited, saying, I got something, oh my gosh. That as I was walking away from the building, she hangs back to snap some pictures with her cell phone camera, and she decides to rejoin the group. So she calls out, bye, Audrey, snaps one last picture, and in that picture, it looks like a little girl standing in the window with little pigtails looking out at her. And it's this really great, vivid picture, especially for being a ghost picture. So that's why I love going there, because we always get something, and it's a really great energy for me, because being a little girl, it's nothing malevolent, and so it's you really feel for her. I mean, she's a little girl. She wants attention. She wants to be loved. She's 5 years old. So it's a really great feeling there. I can't say enough about it. And it's probably the longest chapter in the book, because we've gotten so many great results out of that.
So what's the scariest investigation you've ever been on?
The only time I've ever actually been scared on one was actually in Cleburne. I don't know if it's even still open anymore. It used to be like a carpet factory, carpet store, but it's this 3-story building just off the square in Cleburne. And it used to be like a gambling casino and a bordello, and then it was a mortuary, and so it's basically just every type of thing you can throw at it. And it's 3 stories, but it's really narrow. So it's a staircase going up the side, and then you go off onto each floor, and then each floor is only 2 rooms, one in the front, and then you go through a little bitty kind of lobby, hallway thing, and then run in the back. And so we're up on the 3rd floor, because that's where the actual casino and all the stuff took place. Apparently that there's a little boy that he was kind of waiting tables, and that he would cheat for the house, where he would look at the people's cards and then make signals to the house so they would know, that they would win. And one time, apparently, that he either he got the signal wrong or the guy was too drunk to understand the signal, and the house lost, and so they threw him down the stairs and he died. That's, I'm sure, just only one of the stories that have happened there. So no telling what's been going on. But we're upstairs on the third floor where it all happened. We're in the front room looking towards the back room, and it's all dark. And in the corner, I saw a figure of a man sitting there that was basically darker than the darkness, And he was. I got the feeling he was looking right at us. And then I got the sensation. I don't know if I actually saw it with my eyes or just from just kind of the feeling of it, but that I got the sensation of him taking a very deliberate step forward towards us. And it was definitely not a, hey, how you doing? I'm going to come shake your hand kind of step. It was more a, you better get out now kind of step. And it was at that time, simultaneously, without us saying anything, myself and then the guy holding the camera, Tyler, just almost kind of started getting short of breath, almost having a panic attack, going, something's not right. We need to get out of here now. And, at least it passed quickly because, we did leave, but at least it wasn't something going on prolonged, because in order for us to get out, we would have had to actually go towards the ghost, because the only door out was in that back room. So we did leave quickly, but at least it was nothing that actually harmed us or anything. But that's the closest I've ever come to really being scared in an investigation. It just, that one definitely felt it was not happy to see us.
I'm going to go investigate with you because you sound fearless. Everything scares me. Unless the lights are on, then I'm good.
Right. No, it's funny because I used to be the biggest weenie when I was a kid. I was terrified of watching The Addams Family because I was scared of Lurch. And so my mom was saying, I never thought in a million years you would actually get into this. We've been walking around cemeteries in the middle of the night, looking for ghosts at 3 o'clock in the morning. And so now, and people ask me on the tour about, doesn't this scare you? And I just tell them that, no, it's more interesting to me than anything. Just kind of interesting to see what I'm going to get. So I try not to allow myself to get scared because, then it's just not going to be enjoyable. And it's, I'm not trying to go in there just to be like, hey, let's have a party. But, it's just more the research of it, just the interesting to see if we can, get communication going.
Well, see, the ghosts don't scare me. That's the part people are like, well, what do you mean the ghosts don't scare you? It's like the ghosts don't scare me. It's the dark that scares me, I think.
Right. I always just tell people that the land of the living is a lot scarier than the land of the dead for me.
No kidding. No kidding. Okay. So you have been talking a little bit about John Wilkes Booth. So, I'm sure everyone has heard that name. He killed Lincoln, but how did he end up in Granbury? What's the story with that? I thought he was killed and died.
Supposedly. The story is that it was another man killed in the barn, that it was kind of part of a conspiracy. Some eyewitnesses even said that the man that was killed in the barn was red-headed and freckled. So that would definitely not be John Wilkes Booth. And supposedly the real John Wilkes Booth escaped. He actually came to nearby Glen Rose, which is about 20 minutes away, because he had a relative living there. So he was going to stay with her. And I think she was an aunt. And she basically said, I don't want to have anything to do with this, So she didn't let him stay there. So that's why he wound up in nearby Granbury. He was under the name John St. Helen. And he tended bar here in Granbury. And the building where he tended bar, it's actually two separate. It's the restaurant, and then there's a store right next door. But it was one large building when he was here. And the store is actually named St. Helens, because of him. He thought he was dying at one point. And so he was laying in the hospital that's now the Granbury Opera House dormitory near the square. And he thought he was on his deathbed. So he confessed to A.P. Gordon's brother, F.J. Gordon. And here's another random connection for you. He also confessed to Memphis attorney Finis L. Bates, who happens to be the grandfather of actress Kathy Bates. So he confessed to both of them that he was John Wilkes Booth. He later recovered from his illness, realized, I just told people my secret. So he made a quick getaway out of town. Then apparently years later, in a town named Enid, Oklahoma, a man named David George, who was a house painter, I believe, he ended up committing suicide after having confessed to people that he was John Wilkes Booth. So then the body of David George was mummified and put on a traveling freak show circuit till about the 1970s when the mummy mysteriously disappeared. So we still have no idea what happened to that mummy, but you can see pictures of it online. If you Google John Wilkes Booth mummy, John St. Helen, that sort of thing, it's kind of cool if you're morbid like I am. But
So did they have pictures of that John St. Helen, and could you compare it to the mummy and see if it was the same person?
Oh, that's what people have tried to do. I don't know if they've got any. I've never actually seen pictures of John St. Helen himself, but people do say that he looked like him. And that he also walked with a limp, as if his leg had been broken in the past, which Booth did break his leg. And of course, he was really into theater and acting with the Opera House and everything. And and of course, Booth was an actor. And then of course with his confession, that's why people believe, and that they believe that he actually is the one that one of them that haunts the Opera House now, and that people have reported seeing a man in the Opera House that looks like John Wilkes Booth, like a picture they've seen of him. They weren't able to really reconcile the mummy with John St. Helen and John Wilkes Booth. It's just that's the person that I think it actually was Finis Bates that kind of took possession of the mummy and everything, so he was kind of marketing him as that. As far as any hard evidence, they weren't able to get that, so it's still all in legend, of course. But
yeah, I think it would be kind of weird and dumb. I don't know. I could think of some other adjectives probably. To go around confessing that you were the person that killed the president.
Right.
I mean, committed a murder is one thing, killed the president, that really does have a certain other level of implication. I mean, unless you were a person that hated Lincoln, perhaps, then maybe it wouldn't be that bad.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's why also that he confessed he thought he was going to die, so that's why he made a deathbed confession and then got better and said, "Whoops, I didn't die like I was planning." And then that's why, and supposedly that whenever David George confessed, he committed suicide right after. So like that, it's not like he's just walking around bragging to everyone, "Yeah, I killed the president." That he actually thought, the first time he thought he was going to die, and then I guess the second time he was planning on dying. So at least it's not just someone just being callous about it. But.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's see. So with the town being so old, what about like the cemeteries? I mean, I remember growing up. I mean, I grew up in upstate New York, and just like down the street from my parents' house was this cemetery that had primarily tombstones from like the mid to late 1700s. So like I would go in there in the daytime because it was sunny out, but we'd literally cross the street, a main street, and walk down the block past the cemetery and then walk back across the street to get to my house if I had to go by the cemetery because it was a cemetery and it was spooky at night. So anyway, how are do you have a lot of cemeteries in Granbury, and is there activity at those?
Yeah, we have our main one is the Granbury City Cemetery,
okay,
and we actually do late night. You probably really like this one. We do late night cemetery tours at 10:45 at night by flashlight. That's by reservation only, and that's a historical tour. It's not supposed to be ghostly. We just go to the graves of Granbury's founders. But that cemetery has a lot of Civil War veterans. We even have a veteran of the War of 1812 buried out there. And then we have General Granbury, who is buried out there, who of course is our town's namesake. And then of course the most famous person buried out there is another legend. And like I was saying about, we're a popular town to come to after you're supposedly killed. Is Jesse James is supposed to be is allegedly buried out there. That it's another conspiracy that it was another man killed in his stead as a way of faking his death, and that he escaped working the railroads in the 1880s. And so wound up in here because we have a railroad near us. And he was under the name J. Frank Dalton, and that he actually died here in Granbury at the age of 103 in 1951. So the body of supposedly Jesse James is buried out in the city cemetery with plaques and everything. So people love going by to visit him. So that's our famous one. And then we have another cemetery called the Acton Cemetery. It's in the nearby community of Acton. It's basically Granbury 2. It's just a little neighboring community. And buried out there is Elizabeth Crockett, who is the widow of David Crockett from the Alamo. And her gravesite actually marks the smallest state park in Texas. It's just her grave that's the state park, not the cemetery. So it's even got a little fence around it and everything. So.
So, I mean, are we talking like, the size of a room or small?
No, it's about the size of a couple of. I think it's her and then maybe one other person that's buried. I think it's two graves, two other. It's her and two other people that's inside this little fenced-in area, and that's the state park. So basically, the size of 3 graves.
Okay. I guess you can't like play catch there or anything.
Right, yeah, I wouldn't recommend camping. It's not very good fishing there. But
frisbee, nothing.
Yeah. Unless you're really bad at frisbee, then maybe you can.
Well, you probably would want to play frisbee with me inside an area that big because then you don't have to run so far.
Right.
So what other interesting buildings are there in Granbury that I thought of as being haunted?
Well, of course, the Opera House is the most popular one with John Wilkes Booth, and it's just been recently renovated, so it's beautiful and historic looking. There's the Nut Hotel, the jail, and then the Langdon Center that we like to talk about. There's another house just down about a block off called the Aston House that we like to go to on the tour. It's this beautiful old house, and that it's believed to be haunted by the wife of Andy Aston. Her name is Dorothy Dolly Ficklin. And children have actually seen a woman checking in at night as they lay in bed. So she's still tending to children. Another popular building is the B.M. Estes building, which is now a restaurant called Farina's. It's believed that B.M. Estes, the one that built the building, is still haunting there to this day. People have seen like a gentleman or things will fly off the shelves. Then, of course, the most popular story, it's not really linked with a certain building. It's not like a cool building, but it's one of the stores on Houston Street, which is the west side of the square. It's called Market on the Square, and it's believed that a little faceless girl haunts this building. That it's believed that in the early 1900s, a circus came to town and accidentally left this little girl behind. And she wound up wandering the streets and I guess didn't come to a very good end. Or other version says that maybe she was watching the circus parade past from an upstairs window when she fell from the window. And again, it didn't go so well. But the most fascinating part of the story is back in the 1980s, they had a photo booth in there where you could, dress up as a saloon girl or a cowboy. And they come in to open up one morning and find that the booth is a bit in disarray. So they're really, confused, trying to figure this out, because every person that had a key to the building is inside the building at the same time, and none of them had any clues to what had happened. Well, as they're tidying up and getting ready to open and still trying to figure out why the booth is messed up, one of them discovers a photograph in the waste paper basket nearby, and that photograph is of a little girl sitting on the antique chair that had been moved in the booth, wearing the same blue dress that I found draped across the chair. And she's holding a bouquet of flowers and has a bow in her hair. And you can make out pretty much every detail in the picture except for her face is completely blanked out. So that's a really fascinating story. Everyone seems to love that on the tour because you don't get too many ghost selfies. So it's really nice, having it's kind of cool having a ghost actually taking a picture of themselves and leaving it for you to find. So that's probably the most fascinating one.
And so this is a contemporary picture.
Yeah, but it's made to look old because, like I said, it was found in the 80s. But of course, it definitely looks old just from the age. It's still 30 years old now. But and of course, the clothes she's wearing, since it's the whole point of the booth was to look like an old timey photo. So maybe it kind of reminded her of what she used to wear, and she's playing dress up or something. So.
You only wish that it had the date stamp on it too. That would be extra cool. So
right,
the date, the time,
yeah,
all that electronic stuff. Oh yeah, but then it wouldn't work probably. But
right.
So, what do you think the whole thing with ghosts are about? Why do you think they hang around?
I get asked that question a lot, and the main thing I just tell people is my belief is I don't think, there's really one strict answer because, there's all the different theories, unfinished business or they don't know they're dead or, whatever. But the way I feel is that ghosts are basically, just people without bodies. And since each individual person has a different motivation, then it would stand to reason that each individual ghost would have a different motivation as well. So, Ghost A might be here because they have something that they want to accomplish first. Ghost B might just really, not want to leave their house, and or Ghost C might be, terrified to cross over because they don't know what's on the other side. So, I mean, I think basically every theory that people have about why ghosts exist is valid, because I'm sure there's at least one ghost that would fit that theory.
Okay. And so in the ghosts of Granbury, do you find that many of them are active hauntings? Do you find that they're residual hauntings? Do you find that there's a combination? What's your observation about it?
It seems to be a combination, but I would say most of them are pretty active, just from what I've witnessed and from what other people have told me. Like Audrey is definitely very active. I mean, she will respond to our questions, and like that appear in the windows. And when the woman actually called out by Audrey and takes a picture of her. So Audrey's very very intelligent, very active. Same thing with the lady in red, with the alleged bordello. That she might even be closer to a poltergeist activity. She's been known to throw things and kind of pitch hissy fits, and so she wants things the way she likes them, and she does not like change. I know they were saying that they were taking up the wooden sidewalk outside the side of the building, and they were putting in a regular concrete sidewalk, and that's when things were really the pots and pans were flying. She was not having it. So there's that, but then there's others that there's a cowboy that killed himself inside one of the restaurants, and that they will see a man walking, a cowboy in a cowboy hat and duster, and that one time they heard the pots and the shelf of pots and pans crashing to the ground, but then when they got there was nothing up there. So I think that might be more residual, that maybe because he hanged himself inside the building, maybe that's the crash of him knocking things over as he hanged himself. Like the woman with Dolly Ficklin checking the kids at night, and they would hear pots and pans moving around the kitchen. So that's probably still like that being being a mother. So that's probably more residual as well. So I think it's a good combination, and it kind of makes you think, and it makes you consider maybe there's, each haunting itself is sometimes a combination too, like what could be residual and what could be active.
Mm-hmm. One of the things that you were talking about earlier were like EVPs. So my experience in listening to EVPs is they sound like and I can never make anything discernible out of them. Now, I'm not a particularly auditory person, but in the data that has been collected in Granbury, okay, so I will say that there have been a few, and I'm just going to say a few, where it seems pretty clear what is being said. In the data that has been collected, on your tours or during your investigations, have you gotten any of those, what are considered Class A EVPs?
Yeah, especially from Audrey. Well, we got one that, and this is at the Langdon Center, but you can tell it's not Audrey. But there's, we had the stationary camera up in one room, and no one's in the building at the time. And they had the recorder, and very clearly you can hear an older woman say, "Hello?" I mean, and it sounds like she's in the room there, And then we got one with Audrey that it was really clear that this one little boy that we brought with us is kind of a junior investigator. He's trying to learn how to play Mary Had a Little Lamb on the piano, and he keeps messing up. And finally, he manages to do it just right. And as soon as he does, we also got a very clear recording of a little girl, presumably Audrey, saying "Yay!" And that was another really clear one. Another one, we did an investigation at, it's an old red brick bank building. It's now a dress boutique. And I wasn't present at that one. I had to do a tour that night. But I was there when they came back to reveal the evidence. And, of course, there is some, sometimes, they're going, "Yeah, it says this." I'm like, "Yeah, I didn't hear anything." But there was one time, because they're showing the DVD, and I happen to be looking down. And I hear a person say, "Help me." And it's that clear. So I'm thinking, it was probably one of the investigators saying this. And then I look up at the screen, and on the screen it says, "EVP, help me." And I'm thinking, that was an EVP? That sounded like a person talking, And then another at that same location, they got just an audio one. This wasn't on the video, but it was an audio one that one of the investigators is saying, "Okay, well, you're kind of boring me, so I'm gonna head out now. We're gonna leave. And really clear, you can hear a woman say, "Thank God." So, so I guess she was ready for us to leave. But yeah, so I mean, there are some that it's just it'll kind of blow you away to listen to, going, yeah, that is very clearly a voice saying that. In others, it's kind of like you push the headphone to your ear really, really close and really believe it's there, then then it'll come out. But no, we've gotten several that are very, very, very hard to debunk.
So you do the ghost tours, and then you do investigations. And so are the investigations for your groups only?
Yes, it's just part of our group, the research and investigation of the paranormal, or RIP group. That's just a separate thing, our own kind of hobby. And we've done a couple where it'd be like a public tour where it's for a charity. People pay $10 or $20 a ticket, and then it goes to a charity, and they get to accompany on the ghost hunt. But generally, the ghost hunts are private. We do have people that'll bring EVPs or other EMF detectors or something on the tour, if they happen to have them handy. But otherwise, the tour is strictly just telling the stories, maybe getting some pictures if they have a camera, that sort of thing.
But then, can they do that? Can they try to get stuff while they're on the tours? I mean, because it sounds pretty compelling. Like, hey, maybe I want to go check out some of these places.
Yeah. Yeah, we've had people, they'll come out and they'll say, can we bring our equipment? And they'll record. And we've gotten a lot of people taking some great pictures on the tours. I haven't heard of anyone actually getting any EVPs while on the tour, but maybe it's because I'm such a loudmouth that I drown out any ghosts trying to talk to them. But we have had people that'll, I know one that they brought, it was a temperature, like a distance temperature reader, and so they could try to find cold spots inside the buildings from outside. And so it's kind of fun sometimes seeing what people will bring. And then people really like using the Ghost Radar app on the phone, which of course I always say it's a free phone app, take it for what it's worth. But then we've had some interesting things happen where like one woman, she was using the app and it's supposed to say a word or some random word that a ghost is supposed to say. And we were out doing the cemetery tour, and she was having a lot of trouble using this app because her phone kept automatically turning the volume down on its own. And so she couldn't actually hear the words being said. So she kept having to turn it back up, and then it would turn it right back down. So, it's probably that it wasn't that it was using the app, but it was using the energy from the phone. So we've had some interesting things of people, getting some weird experiences on the tours.
That's cool. I think, some people go on those tours, they want to get touched. They want to smell the cigar smoke. They want to get something in their picture or, whatever it is. They want to have some kind of experience, I think.
Right. And then we get people, because they're always asking, do we get to see a ghost? Or some people, we didn't see anything. And that's why I always tell people at the beginning about, you're not guaranteed to see or experience anything because they, ghosts don't come when we call them. They're not dogs. Come here, little ghost. But just to keep your eye,
But you can't just have somebody with a white sheet kind of just run through.
Right. I do tell people about, that we don't have anything rigged because we don't want to cheapen the experience. We want to make sure any experience they have is as authentic as possible. But then at the end, our little gimmick we do is my mother actually makes, and we call them ghosty pops, that they're little dum-dum pops, and then we cover them with white tissue paper, draw little eyes on them, and tie it. And so we give those out to each one of the people, and that way we can say that, now no one can say they didn't see a ghost on the tour. But so at least, they get to take home a ghost with them. But otherwise, like that way, I just let people know that anything they see or hear, if it's not a trick of the imagination, because sometimes, people do, they'll see things what they want to see. But if it's not a trick of the imagination, then it might be real, because we're not going to try to fabricate something. We want to make sure they go home with an actual experience if that's what happens.
Yeah. So we have a couple of minutes left. Do you want to tell people if they want to get your book, Haunted Granbury, where could they do that?
You can go online. It's on Amazon and all major online retailers. It's available as an ebook, iPad, Kindle, Nook, and print, of course. It's also available through the publisher's website, historypress.net. And I'll be selling them at the Paranormal Expo. So you can get them on May 17th in Granbury at the Granbury Resort Conference Center. I may not be at the booth right then because we'll be selling it at the Ghost Tour booth, the Granbury Ghost and Legends Tour booth. But if you buy a copy of the book, they'll be the people that sell it to you will be able to describe what I look like. If you snag me while I'm running around like crazy, I will happily sign it for you. It's also available at a couple shops on the square. As far as I know right now, it's the shops are Spellbound and Artifacts on the square. A couple other places for selling them, but I think they're still sold out right now. But your best bet, it would be if you're online, if you can't get to Granbury, would be Amazon or historypress.net.
So can they buy them directly from you online? Because I'm big about, getting it signed is priceless.
Right. I don't have it where they can get it through me online just yet. But if they ever happen to buy it and if they want to Google me or go to granburytours.com, contact me, then, we can work it out where I'll work it out so maybe they can send it to me and I'll sign it for them. I'm always willing to accommodate that if that's what they want.
Yeah. Well, cool. Well, I know the music's going to come up in a second, so thank you for coming on and talking to us about the ghosts of Granbury. And I will see you in a couple of weeks.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. It's going to be fun.
Yes, it is. Okay. That's Brandy Herr. Her book is Haunted Granbury. Her expo is Granbury Paranormal Expo, which is happening May 17th in Granbury, Texas. Next week, let's see. We're going to be speaking to Herman S. Jr. about quantum physics, morphogenic resonance, and society. And so until then, I'm Dr. Rita Louise. This is Just Energy Radio. Be blessed.
Join host Dr. Rita Louise each week at this time for Just Energy Radio. Point your